and a mic.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, one of the most talented players to ever don a major league uniform, Rod Carew.
My brother Frankie, how are you, pal?
Back at it again, huh?
Back at it again, that's right.
Our guest today is none other than Mr. Rod Carew. 7 batting titles.
So who has more, just Ty Cobb?
Ty Cobb. He asked me a trick question. Ty Cobb, Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn has 7?
Tony Gwynn has 8.
Does
he? You asked me who has more.
Right.
So 7 wouldn't be more than
No.
7. 8
7's not more than 7.
8 would be more than 7.
And 6 would be one less.
Yes.
You see how good I'm getting with this bad stuff? I'm really glad you're here to point that. You shouldn't let that get out, though. That could sink national security. That could be a national security question.
What's your first baseball memory?
Mike, that's a great question. I think my first baseball thing would be 54, the shot heard around the world. I think,
That's quite a memory because the shot heard
51.
51.
Excuse me. Yeah, but 54 is what I was really aware of it because the Giants made the World Series that year. They played Cleveland. And I was a big Willie Mays guy. So I was aware of the Bobby Thompson 51 shot because of my love for the Giants.
How old are you in 51? 4?
No, yeah, I didn't remember it when it happened. That's what I'm saying. In 54 is when I really was my first memory of paying attention to baseball.
Yeah, I've got a few memories, but I think that my most vivid memory is seeing the outfield grass at Yankee Stadium for the first time. It was so fucking green. I mean, it was green. You have those tunnels,
right?
And you went through the tunnels, and I saw the green grass, and I was smitten.
Yeah, of course. If you played baseball, I'm sure you did when you were a kid. You never played on a field that looked like that. So
never.
Just the idea of looking at that infield without broken glass or rocks or anything.
Absolutely.
You know what? Yeah, but I do remember that too. When I first went to Yankee Stadium, I don't know how old I was, maybe 11 or 12, coming out of that tunnel and seeing that field. And I also thought that Mickey Mantle was bald because when he took off his cap in center field for the national anthem, his blonde hair was so cropped, he looked bald to me. And I was like flabbergasted. I said, Mickey Mantle's bald? It was like a big, I was upset because I thought he was like Superman,
And you were in the stadium when Maris hit his 61st home run.
Yeah, that was a big kick.
Why don't you tell me about that?
12 years old. Well, Sunday was, you could take the train for 15 cents to go down to Yankee Stadium. It was about 7 or 8 stops from where I lived at Fordham Road. And we used to get in. Although it was only 75 cents for the bleachers in them day, I remember, but we knew a cop. And he used to let us in for free. My friend Twiggy, my friend Richie, we used to call him Twiggy. And he was a real devout Yankee fan. And he said they were offering $5,000 for the ball back in 61. If Maris hits the record, whoever gets the ball gets $5,000. And that was a ton of money, especially for a kid. But he said Maris usually hits his home runs over here, and he was in the right field porch, short right field porch. And sure enough, when Maris hit the homer, the guy who caught the ball was Sal Durante. Mm-hmm. And I was 3 rows behind Sal Durante.
Tree rows.
3 rows.
Not
3
three.
small rows.
Not tree.
Tree. And is tree less than 4? Is it more than 2? But yeah, so I mean, it was, I never quite forgave Maris for not putting an extra little bit there to get that ball in my hands. But I told you, the guy, when Durante caught the ball, he got clocked.
Did he?
This guy's, it was $5,000, and security, they had that whole right field area.
That would be like $75,000 today, right?
Oh, yeah. Probably more. That whole area was saturated with security.
Derek's daughter's paying $27 for a sandwich.
Yes, exactly.
So who knows how much that ball could have been worth?
It's amazing what it would have been worth. I mean, everything. But security rushed to that area, and he was on his way down when they caught him. I mean, he caught the ball, and he was like, I got it. And wham!
He got it. Okay.
This guy wanted him to drop the ball.
Well, Rod grew up in the Bronx. He went to George Washington High School, same high school that gave us Manny Ramirez of the Red Sox. And he was discovered at
McComb's Dam Park.
McComb's McComb's Dam Park.
Yeah, we used to call it McComb's Dam Park.
Right.
I see it in print now, McComb's Park, but it was always McComb's Dam Park because it was a way of kids saying "dam"
Sure.
without.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's where he got discovered, right? Which
Yeah.
is right in the shadow of Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, because he was cut by his high school baseball team.
Amazing, right?
Two
I wonder what happened to that coach.
3 years later, he was playing in the majors. But we'll save all that stuff for Rod.
Yeah, he's a Bronx guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Brock. He moved to the States when he was 13 years old.
What part of the Bronx is George Washington High in? It's by the Deegan, I think. I got to ask him.
I think you can ask him that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we get him on the line so you can ask him that?
Get a chance to meet Rod Carew, brother. Thank you very much. It's a nice opportunity.
Derek, can you bring on the great Rod Carew?
Let's bring on Rod Carew.
Junior, how are you?
I am great, pal. How are you?
Good. That's my friend Billy O'Connor, and that's my other.
Hi, Billy.
That's my
Real
other.
pleasure to know you,
That's
Rod.
my other
pleasure.
friend, Derek Harris.
Absolute pleasure.
Hello, hello, hello.
You're looking.
Hello,
You're
hello.
looking good. What's that behind you on the wall?
Those are some of those things I accumulated over the years.
Wow.
You know, the bats.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm surprised it's not backed up with pictures' heads and pictures that you accumulated over the years.
You know, each of those
Yeah.
bats are real sterling silver. Now they're all silver plated bats.
Oh,
They give
wow.
but they're all sterling silver. So you got a nice little endowment going on there, pal.
Yes, I do.
So it's opening day's just passed. Why don't you tell us a little about your memory of your first opening day in 1967?
Well, my first opening day was against Baltimore, and that amazing staff that they had won the World Series, I think, the year before. And I was facing Dave McNally, and promptly got a base hit up the middle between his legs. And I ended up today, I think it was 2 for 4 or 2 for 5. So that was the big start.
Yeah, and that made you believe you belonged in the major leagues?
Yeah, well, you know, I always knew that I did, but you know, I still had a lot of work I had to improve, try different things, make some adjustments, and go on from there.
Well, didn't Calvin tell Sam Mealy that you were his second baseman going into spring training?
You know, there's a story behind that. You know, I played I think it was my second year in Orlando, Florida. Well, my second year. And I had, you know, a couple, I mean, I did have a decent year. I lost the batting title by 2 points on the last day. And go to spring training the next year, and they were promoting guys that had worse years than I did. And they were going to AA and AAA, and then they were sending me back to Class B. And I went on strike. You know, we had a big tree out in Melbourne by the field. So I went on strike. I says, I'm sitting under this tree. I'm not working out anymore. I'm done, you know. So I sat out there all day. Next thing I know, Calvin Griffith is walking up next to me. He said, "What are you doing?"
The team
I
owner.
said, I'm on strike. I don't want to play anymore. I want to go to AA or someplace else, but I'm not going back to Class B. And he sat down beside me, and he said that you're going to be my second baseman last year. And so I had, you know, like, come on, you know, you're not going to do that to a player that's coming from Class B. He says, you go to Wilson, North Carolina, and you have a good year. I says, what if I don't have a good year? He says, you're still going to be my second baseman because I believe it. And so I said, okay. So I went in and put my uniform on and joined the other guys working out. And sure enough, went to spring training the following year, and he told manager Sam Mealy, he says, play him. He's going to be my second baseman this year. And Billy Martin started to work with me and try to improve my defense. And, you know, at the time, what they're doing today is they're able to take 28 players north and then cut down to the roster, which is how I made the club in 1967. And I think I had, I wasn't doing that great. I always knew I could hit, but the other parts of the game I was going through, a learning process. And the last 2 days before the cut down was due, I think I went something like 9 for 11, and because they had a uniform for me in Denver, which was a AAA club, and I went like 9 for 11, sorry, and that was it. I shot my average up from like 245 to about 345, 350, and I never stopped hitting after that.
And you never stopped until you became Rookie of the Year in that same 1967 season. Rod, why don't you tell us a little bit? I know you were cut from your high school baseball team.
I wasn't even cut. I was just told, before I got on the field that, I don't think that you're good enough to play, with these other guys. So I said, okay.
How did Twins discover you?
Well, I was playing sandlot in New York in different areas, like Crotona Park in the Bronx and just around the city. And I also played outside the old Yankee Stadium. So I was taking at bats when I would hear those guys, the fans screaming and hollering in the stadium as the game went along. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to play at this place. And so this friend of mine took me with him to play on this team. And his dad was like, they used to call him back then a bird dog scout, where he would look at players and then refer them to the main scout. Well, the main scout was a guy who was, he was scouting for the Twins, and also he was a security guy on the subways. So he came out to see me, and first day he saw me, I went 3 for 4 and stole a couple bases. And then he brought Calvin in to see me while the Twins were in town playing the Yankees. And I hit 4 triples and a homer and a couple of doubles. And Calvin is in the stands watching this. And then they put me in the outfield, center field, because they wanted to see what kind of reactions I would have in the outfield. So I went out there, and there was a ball hit into right center field, and I picked it up, and I threw it exactly at the cutoff man, because there was a base runner that was rounding second going to third. And he was impressed with my decision to make sure that I hit the cutoff man, try and slow the guy down and not having him score. So he looked at the scout and he said, sign him. And that was it.
But you still had to try out for Sam Millie, right? And didn't you try out in Yankee Stadium?
Oh, yeah. When the Twins came in, when they were in town, they invited me to work out with the team just to see, how I would react. So, I was this skinny kid, bones. I was, I think, about 140 pounds. And they gave me Tony Oliva's jersey to put on because they didn't have one smaller for me to wear. So Tony and I were just about the right size. And so I put the shirt on and I went outside, and people started calling me Tony Oliva. And I said, no, I'm not Tony. I'm just wearing his jersey. And so when we started infield and batting practice, I was in a cage, and I was hitting balls in the upper deck into right center field. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice say, "Get him out of there!" because they didn't want the Yankees to see me. So Sam Neely and Billy Martin took me out to second base, and I started working out at second. And after the game, they said they were very interested in me. And I had a couple more clubs that were too, but I decided to go with the Twins because they were a new club. And I thought maybe I might have a quicker chance of getting to the big leagues. And that's the reason why I signed with them.
And they signed you right at your high school graduation, correct?
Right. Yeah.
18, Rod? About 18 then?
Yeah.
18 years of age? Right into the pros?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So they didn't I don't think they had the draft back then. But I was happy. I just wanted to play. I didn't care how much money they were going to give me. I just wanted to play because it was something that I grew up as a kid listening to the games and Armed Forces radio. And, I was fortunate. God blessed me with the tools of playing the game. And he said to me, these are not supposed to be wasted. I want you to go out and work hard and make yourself a better player. And that's what I concentrated on doing. Learning every time I took the field, and I would ask advice. And I would, I was the type of rookie that I kept my mouth shut and open my ears so that I could pick up all the knowledge that I could from, the guys that were there before me.
You moved to New York in 63, 64, somewhere around there. And by 1967, you were the American League Rookie of the Year. In 1968, you hit 295. And I think that was a turning point in your career, because didn't you decide you wanted to be more than a 295 hitter? Did you want to hit 300?
Yeah, and I knew, excuse me, I knew that I could do better. And so I put a lot of work into it. The Twins told me that they didn't want me to hit home runs because the old man had seen me hit some home runs when he came to scout me. And they said, we're going to put you in the top of the lineup. We want you to get base hits, score runs, steal bases if you can, and let the other 5 or 6 guys on the club that could hit home runs do the home run hitting. So I went from a power hitter to transforming myself into a guy that used the whole field to hit. Because I needed to get on base. And so I stopped swinging for the fences and just started hitting line drives, line to line, because that's what they said. They gave me those 2 lines to use, and I was going to use both of them.
Well, Billy's got a line that Jim Murray wrote in a column. Let me just introduce that line by saying, first of all, you're talking about how you improved, and you had an awful lot to say about Billy Martin in your book, which is a great read, by the way. Rod Carew, One Tough Out.
Thank you.
There's a great chapter in there about in 65 when you started working with Martin, how he worked on 69. Your infield. 69, I'm sorry, when you started working on your infield, turning the double play, the pivot. But we also wrote a book, Frank and I, If These Lips Could Talk, and of course 2 chapters are dedicated to you. And one chapter, Rod Carew, Safe at Home, it opens with a quote from Jim Murray, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. And I love this quote. I mean, I had something to do with it being where it is, and love the quote. Watching Rod Carew bat it's like watching Bulova make a watch. De Beers cut a diamond. It's Baryshnikov dancing Tchaikovsky. Caruso sobbing out the clown aria. Kelly pirouetting in the rain. Rod Carew doesn't make hits. He composes them. The artist at bat. And I think that's just a great, great quote about you, man. Jim Murray, Pulitzer Prize winning author. You were an artist.
And I can only say, as a Bronx guy myself, and I was never a Yankee fan. I grew up in the shadow of Yankee Stadium, not too far from McComb's Dam Park, as we used to call it, McComb's Dam Park.
Right.
And I'm just delighted the Yankees didn't get their hands on you, because I hated the Yankees growing up. Even though I was a Bronx kid, I was a Giant fan. And if they would have got you, it would have made my life that much more miserable as a kid growing up with those Yankee years. So I'm delighted you went where you did go. But talk a little bit about Martin. And there was a quote in the book that you said about Martin that you loved his insight and his personality. I don't know if there's a lot of people that would love Billy Martin's personality. Tell us about the real Martin, how he worked with you, how he helped you.
He was really, I fell in love with the man because I think one of the key things that he taught me was don't make alibis for mistakes you make on the field. He says, if you mess up and I come to you, let me know that you messed up and we will work on it and correct it. So we were playing a game, I think, in an exhibition game in Atlanta. And I blew a play at second base, and it was supposed to be his third out. And after we got to third out and I came off the field, he was standing at the top steps ready to bite my head off. And I says, hey, I messed up. I didn't think about what I should do. And he gave me his hand and he said, that's what I want you to do. When you screw up on the field, look for ways to try and improve and not look for alibis. So after that, we became really close. We became so close that I asked him to be, when I got married, I asked him to be the godfather of my second daughter. And, he just broke down and cried in front of me because he thought that was such a tremendous honor. And for me to ask him to be my daughter's godfather, he couldn't believe it. But contrary to what everybody thought about Bill, he was a great man. He was a great friend. He cared about you. And he just worked me until I couldn't take it anymore at times. And I would tell him, hey, ease up. He says, there's no easing up here. If you're going to ease up, you're going to ease right on to the top of the game when I'm done with you. And that's the way it ended up, And he saw other things in me. He knew that I could hit the ball out of the ballpark. And there are times, I think my second year, I was trying and forgetting the other things that I had made some adjustments to do at the plate. And he came to me and he says, maybe you ought to use a little bit a bat with a bigger head, instead of those skinny bats that you're using. So he gave me a Jackie Robinson bat to use. And, Jackie's bat had a big head, and it also, the handle was a little bit thick. And he wanted me to cut down my swing by using that bat, and I did the first year. I think it was 69, and I led the league. So I said, man, this guy knows everything about it. And then after that, it just seemed like it was a natural thing, for me to do. When I played, I learned how to make adjustments. I learned how to hit different pitches. And it was from there, everything just seemed to have picked up for me. And that's why I say I'm very fortunate. God gave me these gifts, and I worked at him as he wanted me to. So my motto is God's first, my family's second, and baseball is third.
That's great.
A pretty damn good way to live.
That's great. So 69 was your first of 15 consecutive years that you batted over 300. You won 7 batting titles. You finished second twice and third 3 times. That's a pretty remarkable streak. But Billy became manager in 69. Is that correct? And didn't he teach you how to steal bases? Steal home?
I thought he was crazy when he came up with that notion about stealing home. And he worked. Here's another thing. He took me out, worked on the lead I should have, timed the pitchers, and he had left-handed pitchers winding up, right-handed pitchers winding up. And so he instructed me as far as taking my lead and when to break. And I looked at him and I said, what if I get hit? Well, what if somebody doesn't get the sign and they swing and I get hit? And he says, no, we'll come up with a simple sign and we will flash the sign to them. They will answer you. And if they don't answer you, you don't go. So I remember on this one occasion, we were playing against the Angels and Hoyt Wilhelm was on the mound. And, you know, he usually pitched really well against us. Harmon was at the plate.
Harmon Killebrew.
Wilhelm, of course, is a knuckleball pitcher. Great knuckleball pitcher, right?
Great knuckleball pitcher, yeah. And I said to myself, I think we were behind. And I said, I'm going to steal it now. Because usually it was meant to be used like in the 8th and 9th innings when we were a run down or we needed an extra run. And so I thought, 5th inning, Hoyt's doing a great job. Harmon's at the plate. Why not? And so I flashed Harmon the sign, and he answered. So I figured, okay. So I, you know, William goes into that slow windup he had, and I took my lead, and I took off. And as I'm sliding in, Harmon is about ready to swing, and he jumped back. And he used to call me Junior. He says, Junior, I forgot. So the next day, the guys from the PR made a sign, a tombstone sign, and put it in left field. And it read, here lies Rod Carew, line to left by Killebrew.
Nice poet. Killebrew, line to left by Killebrew, Rod Carew. Very nice.
So you stole home 7 times that year.
I stole home 7 times, and the 8th time was in Seattle. And Bill Honachek didn't see that. I think it was J.C. Martin that the ball came out of his glove, and he called me out. And Billy went into such a rage because that was the league leading tiebreaker. And I didn't feel bad about Jim Honachek missing the call because he was a great man, a great umpire, very nice guy. And I said, well, Billy, I still have a few more games that I can do this. He says, I can't say words here, but he was irritated. And I think he got kicked out of the game. And I said, Billy, I told you I'll have another chance. He said, no, that so-and-so. He just blew the call and, he was wrong. And so I told Bill as I walked away, I said, Bill, don't worry about it. And I tried it once more, but from the stretch. The pitcher went from the stretch. And I think it was Tommy John. And, he had that slow windup. So I thought even from the stretch that I could do it. And I just got nipped at the plate. And so that cut it down. After that, I did try to do it.
Yeah, you ended up one short of Pete Reese's record of 8 stolen bases in the season. But you also you stole home like 14 times in your career, or something like that.
17 out of 19 times, I think.
Wow!
But who's counting? You know, you always tell me you don't have anything about stats. You always
that one I do.
Yeah, but you always say, I don't know anything about stats. You know,
that's because you kind of pumped that in my head.
You know what it was? Hitting came easy. Stealing home, he had to learn. He had to learn that. He had to work on that.
You always go, I ask Reggie for my stats, or I ask Pete Rose. In 78, what happened in the All-Star game in 78?
We were playing in San Diego, and I hit a triple. And then my second at bat, I hit another triple. So as I'm sliding into third base, Pete Rose is saying, "Rod, that's a record. It's never been done. That's a record. That's a record. Congratulations." And I'm like, what is he talking about? You know? And then when it's kind of settled down, he says, nobody has ever hit 2 consecutive triples in an All-Star game.
So,
but Pete's got this brain like a dictionary. He knows everything. Reg is the same way.
Yep, he is for sure. I'm going to throw you some names, and just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about them. Willie Mays.
Greatest player that ever played the game.
I love hearing that.
Can you expand a little bit?
Well, Willie could do it all. He could run. He could hit for power. Had a great arm. Could steal bases. And if you watch that catch that he made in the Polo Grounds, you know that he could feel. And he just went all out every day that he took the field.
You know, I love that in 54. You're talking about the catch against Vic Wirtz over the shoulder. When Mays got up the following inning, he hit a triple to exactly that same place. And the announcer said the only guy who could have caught that ball was the guy who hit it.
The guy that was on his way to third.
Yep,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Nolan Ryan.
Oh, one of the nicest people that I've ever met in the game. He was a challenge to hit off of. And, you know, I struck out 29 times against Nolan.
But
I was like,
what? Who's
number
counting?
4.
Who's counting?
It's gonna tell a story about making the adjustments. But I used to chase that high fastball. You know, I used to love hitting that high fastball. Never caught up to it, but I kept at it. I said, one day I'm going to hit that pitch off of it. Well, I ended up striking out 29 times, but I still hit 300 off of it because, you know, I learned to make adjustments. So for 2 weeks, I sat on a swivel stool, taking extra batting practice, just to keep my body down, you know, not coming up to chase that high fastball. And after 2 weeks, I said, okay, it's time to try it in the game. See, Nolan's fastball, when it's down, it doesn't jump like it does when it's up in the zone. So it's a little bit straighter. No matter how hard he threw it, it was a little bit straighter. And the first time I faced him after I experimented with that stool stuff was I got 2 hits. And I was like amazed, you know. Okay, it's working. I'm staying down. And then the next game, I think I got 2 more hits. And the next game, he threw me a changeup and I dropped a bunt down the third base line. And he picked the ball up and there was no play at first. And then he came over and he says, you know, I gave you a pitch to swing at it and you bunt it. I said, no, I'm going to take the base hits any way I can off of you. and then one time we played a game in California and Gene Hawk sat me out that day and he said, be ready to pinch hit. So I think it was the 6th or 7th inning. He called me a pinch hit. Nolan was pitching and he threw me a curveball and I hit it over the center field wall. And he looked at me and says, were you looking for that pitch? I said, no, I just swung. And, you know, with the light air in the day games in California, the ball just jumped. You know, so he never tried to hit me, never tried to knock me And one other time, trying to make that adjustment, he was yelling at me from the mound in Minnesota one time, stand up, and I kept pointing down, point that fastball down. I wasn't going up there. I wasn't going up that ladder anymore.
That reminds me of another story with Catfish Hunter and Thurman Munson. Why don't you tell that story?
Oh, yeah. We went into New York and we played a Friday night game, and I got 3 hits. And the next day, I was standing at the cage, the batting cage, and Thurman Munson was walking down to the bullpen. He says, "How many are you going to get tonight?" I says, "I don't know, maybe 1 or 2. He says, "That's all?" I says, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call every pitch that he throws me." And I said, "I'm going to call the pitch that I'm going to get a base hit off of." So, I had the funny stance, as everybody called it. And he thought that I was peeking down at his sign because, the first pitch that Catfish threw me, I said, fastball down and in. And it was a fastball down and in. So he looked up at me and said, "Man, stop peeking. I'm going to drill you." I said, "No, he's not going to throw it."
Didn't he untie your shoe when you first came up?
Yeah, he untied my shoes and was throwing dirt on my feet. The whole works, trying to distract me.
Bloody Yankees.
And Ron Luciano was trying to let him, come on, man, I want to see this whole thing go down. He says, "Thurman, let him hit." So the next pitch that Catfish threw, I says, fastball down and in. And fastball down and in. And so I says, "Thurman, this is it." So what are you talking about? So he gets up, he runs out to the mound and told Catfish that I just called both of his pitches. He says, "And we're going to knock you down." I says, "Thurman, he's not going to knock me down. He knows that I have never showed him up or anything like that." So I says, "Just let's get on with it." And Lucy is just like, come on, Thurman, let him hit. So I stepped into the batter's box, and Catfish goes into his windup, and when he's about ready to deliver, I says, "Fastball up and away, double down the left field line." And that's exactly what happened. So I'm at second base, and Lucy is up at the plate, and he's going like this. You're the king.
That's unbelievable.
That's a great story.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
He said,
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Rod.
what happened the next day, I was standing in a batting cage, and Thurman says, "How did you do that last night?" He was going back down to the bullpen. So I pulled out my little black book that I kept notes on pitchers. And Catfish was the guy. I had faced him so many times that the sequence of pitches were always the same. And so he says, "I can't believe this. You've had this book for 10 years. I said, "Yeah." So that's my way of learning about pitchers and seeing how they're trying to pitch me. And he said, "Oh, maybe I should start one of those books." I said, "Yeah, only if you're going to use it." So we just had a laugh. We laughed about it. We talked about it a lot before he died, too.
So let's go back to 1971, the All-Star game. National League All-Stars included Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente, Ron Santo, Willie Stargell, Lou Brock, Willie McCovey, Johnny Brents, Pete Rose, Juan Marichal, and Ferguson Jenkins. That's 11. And the American League Hall of Famers included you, Carl Yastrzemski, Frank Robinson, Harmon Killebrew, and a whole slew of others. Was that the greatest assembly of talent ever on field at one day?
Oh, yes. Not only then, but my first year in Anaheim. Here I am on the field with Hank, Willie, Brooks Robinson, all those great players, Roberto, and I'm this little skinny kid from Panama. I wonder, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. But like I said, God blessed me with that talent, so he put me there.
what was Roberto Clemente like to play with? Because I know you won the 1977 Roberto Clemente Award for Man of the Year in Major League Baseball for your contributions off the field. So I know that meant a lot to you.
Well, when people come to my home, that's the first trophy that I show them, because it's not about baseball. It's about giving back to your fellow man. And that's all Roberto did, all his life. He was more concerned about people and people doing well and surviving and things like that when he died in that plane crash. So I have always had great respect for him. I met him in the All-Star game. I think it was 1968 in Houston. And Tony introduced him to me. And
Tony Oliva.
Tony Oliva said to him, my roomie is going to be a great player. And so Roberto said to me that not only be a great player, but take care of all the Latin kids that you meet in this game and help them out, because they're coming from different places, in the Latin American countries. So what I used to do is I would invite guys, young Latin players, to lunch, or invite them over to my home for dinner or something like that. But always kept in touch with them, and always remember what Roberto said to them, because that's what he did a lot.
Well, for our audience who don't know, Clemente died in a plane crash, but like Rod said, he was trying to help hurricane victims from Nicaragua with relief from Puerto Rico. Again, like you said, philanthropic guy all the way, always looking out for the other guy.
Yep.
Yes, he did.
Let's continue with names. Reggie Jackson, who hit an epic home run in that 1971 All-Star game and later became a teammate of yours.
Well, people talk about Reggie, and what they really don't know about Reggie is that Reggie has a huge heart. He would give me the shirt off his back, because that's the kind of individual, he is. He still is. And so I used to have fun with him. I used to tell him, hey, you better stop, yelling at people when you come into the dugout. They might throw something at you. He says, nah. He says, I'm the boss. But with Reggie, he was very flamboyant. He did his job on the field. And he liked to talk to the fans, and he's a great guy. He's a very good friend. And I have nothing but good things to say about him, and always will.
Well, I'll tell you a story quickly about how Rod and I met 40 years ago. Reggie was traded to the Angels, and I was the pony rep. And I went to see Reggie one day, and he says, there were guys around batting practice. He says, do you own a sport coat? I said, yes, sir. I said, do you own a tie? I said, yes, sir. He said, do you own a briefcase? And all the way around the field, there's guys like Don Baylor and Fred Lynn and Rod Carew and Doug DeCinces, all of these Hall of Famers. And he says, well, come back tomorrow, wear your sport coat, wear your tie, bring your briefcase. I don't even care if it's empty, and we'll sign all these motherfuckers. and I signed 5, 6, 7 guys, one of whom was Rod.
Wow.
And that became the basis of a friendship that's lasted 40 years.
Incredible story.
Okay, Johnny Bench.
Oh, Johnny and I came up almost together, played against him in the Carolina League. And, I used to hear people talk about this guy, this catcher, and that no one, has stolen the base off of him. So I thought, well, I'm going to test him tonight. And I did, and I was successful. But that's the only time I tried, because behind the plate, boy. He had a gun. He could get the ball out of his glove real quick. But I'm telling you that for as far as a human being, you couldn't meet a nicer guy. And I'm glad that we're still friends. We talk, and Johnny's just a great guy. What's crazy about being a Hall of Fame is that we're all in the same boat. When I went in 1991, but the first person that came up to me and talked to me was Bobby Dorr. He's second baseman with the Red Sox for quite a few years. And he said, "Rod, welcome to one of the greatest fraternities in the world." And he was so right about it because, when we have our dinner on Sundays at the Hall of Fame, just for the Hall of Fame players, we have a great time. And we're all about killing each other and saying what you could do against this guy, or this guy used to get you out, and things like that. We just spoke the truth to one another, and it made to be a great evening.
Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn, my buddy. We talked a lot about hitting, a lot. And I first met Tony when I came out to the Angels and in spring training, and he used to come over and watch me hit during batting practice, and we developed a friendship, and that friendship stayed until he passed away. Still think about him today, because I've got this picture of Tony and I that we took our silver bats and had this great photograph made for this friend of mine who passed away he was a photographer, and we thought we'd help raise funds for his boys to go to college. And so we did that, and we just remained friends. It was one of the saddest moments that I faced when I went to his funeral, and just thinking, no, he can't be gone. But I guess God needed another great hitter because he lost someone to injury, and so he called on Tony. So I know I'll probably see him one day.
And in 2015, I believe, the Major League Baseball named their batting champion in the National League the Tony Gwynn Award winner, and in the American League the Rod Carew Award winner. So two notable namings of applicable trophies.
Imagine Tony Gwynn and Rod Carew talk hitting. It's like listening to Rodgers and Hammerstein talk music.
Well, I'll go you one better than that. We were in Atlantic City one year, and we had to go from Atlantic City to Philadelphia Airport to fly home. So I sat in the car with Rod Carew, Tony Gwynn, and Stan Musial. And I didn't say a word. I just let them talk hitting. It was a great time for sure. Let me tell you a quick story about Rod, because at the same trip we were in Atlantic City, Rod had met Don Rickles, and I was working with Don Rickles at the time, and Don was a really good friend. So Rod said, "Let's go see Don tonight at the casino." So I called our friend Tony O, and Tony O set me up for 2 tickets. So Rod and I went, and at the end of the show, Don always introduces people in the crowd. And he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight. We're honored to have Baseball Hall of Famer, 1977 Most Valuable Player, 1967 Rookie of the Year, 3,053 hits, the great Rod Carew." And Rod stands up and he cheers, and Rod sits down, and Don says, "And he's here with Frank Pace, who's a fag from the FBI."
Yeah, I remember that.
Whatever that means. He's a fake for the FBI.
Doesn't make any difference. It's just
coming out of Rickles.
And Frank, you remember he was walking across the stage trying to imitate my batting stance and stuff?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Well, we had a great time with Don. We had a couple great dinners with him also. Who else do I want to ask you about? Al Kaline.
You know, we talk about all these players, and all these players are just good people. And people don't realize that. They see them on the baseball field. But off the baseball field, they just don't understand what kind of people they were cheering for. These are people that have the same hurts and feelings that they have. And they idolize us. If they could only understand us as one of them, you know, with the aches and pains at home and the having the kids and sick kids and stuff like that, they would know that we're only human. You know, we were just blessed with a talent that God gave each and every one of us. Al Kaline was one of those guys that went right to the big leagues. And tremendous outfielder, tremendous hitter, and a tremendous guy. You know, I don't think I can say anything bad about any of the players that I've met over the years and during my playing days. They're all great people.
Didn't you once say that you used to watch Al Kaline in batting practice, and you would think how remarkable it was how the bat sort of bent, and that contributed to your changing bats?
Yeah, because Al had one of those thin bats that he could, you know, just whip through the hitting zone, which is what he did. And then when he hits the ball, you can see like the bat's almost bending, you know, the flexibility in the bat. And I tried a few of them, and I ended up with a big barrel bat, which I tried to do the same thing, you know. But his bat was for hitting home runs. Mine was for hitting line drives.
And that was the Jackie Robinson bat. Was that the model? Was that heavier? There was a heavier bat.
I think it was the Jackie Robinson head, but with the Al Kaline handle.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But it slowed up your swing a little bit. Is that the heavier bat?
Yeah, it cut my swing down a lot. You know, the lighter the bat, you know, the more you want to swing hard. Mm-hmm. The heavier the bat, it cuts down your swing, you know, through the strike zone.
So I'm going to ask you two questions about bats. What about the grain? How can you? I've always heard that they give good hitters good grain, and you know, not so good hitters bad grain. You obviously got the best grain there was, but how do you measure grain?
I never did. You know, I just look at the bat, see the head, and if the head is in the right shape that I wanted, I just went out and hit. But I've heard that theory about the grain, and some guys used to say Ted Williams used to go to Louisville and pick out his bats and, you know, things like that, looking for grain. I never did. Just put it in my hands and say, go to work.
But sometimes during the season, you would play a trick on yourself, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, sometimes, especially at the end of the season. I would start off the season using a 34.5, 32-inch bat. And then when I got into August and September, where my arms are tired, I would switch to 34, 31. But then to get the same look of a 34.5, I would turn the blank side towards my face so that now I'm seeing nothing on the bat. And that, it's more of a mental thing that the bat looked longer, as was, you know, looked like my 34.5, 32. But it was actually a 34, 31-inch bat.
You talked about what a student of the game you have to be to realize that Nolan Ryan, if you were crouched down against Nolan Ryan, his fastball had to come in lower. And the way you practice on that Swivel Stool. Dick Williams said about you that you had 20 different stances when you got in the batter's box. That's what he said. And it was like pitching to 5 different guys. Now, was that because of you had become aware that the certain pitcher didn't like you crouched down? Or why was there so many stances? What was it?
Well, actually, my back foot always stayed on the back line of the batter's box, and my hands were, just right over the plate when I hit. But the reason it looked like I had 7 different stances, that with the front leg, I would move my front leg into different spots. But when I took my stride, it was always in line with my back leg. So it looked like, I changed. I did it in between pitches because I was always looking for that comfort at the plate, and it worked out well for me. But these are things that you have to experiment and see what's good and what's not good. So, I tried everything that I could in the batter's box, because once I got in there and I did something different, I knew it was going to feel comfortable to me.
Yeah, well, he also said it was like pitching to 5 different guys. So obviously you upset the pitchers. They didn't want to see you coming to bat to begin with. But if you went into all those different changes, and elaborate a little bit more to me, you actually sat in a swivel stool and took bat practice for a week just to keep your stance crouched?
Just to keep my body down, right. And all I did was I would take my hands back and kind of sit down and swing all the way through the hitting zone and hitting the baseball. So a lot of times when I tell kids, when I work with kids, I always tell them, think about after you load and you take your stride, you're going to sit and hit, because that's going to keep your balance on tone, in tune with, your hands coming through the strike zone and you're exploding your lower half at the same time.
Sit and hit.
Yep. What's your feelings on the shift?
The shift?
Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved the shift. Frank, you told me something about my bunting during my career. And, I never thought about it until you told us to me. And you said I had like 51 bunt hits and 191 times, some crazy thing like that.
Yep. A 750 bunting average.
Yeah, and so I said, if you want to shift me to the left, I'm going to hit it where you were standing. If you want to shift me to the right, I'm going to hit it just where you're standing, just out of your reach. I don't know. It was just, things that I noticed when I was at the plate. Pitcher gets ready to release the ball, and then you see the shortstop maybe moving a little bit this way or moving this way, and you can see it right out in front as you're concentrated and also trying to pick that ball up.
Yeah, well, Jack McKeon, when he was managing Oakland, said he had a game where he played Bando back and he laid one down. He moved Bando in. You hit it past him. He played Bando back. You laid another one down. He moved Bando back. You moved Bando in. You hit it past him. He said, "I just give up after that." But that's
it's something that I worked on.
Yeah,
and it's something that's not seen in the game today. And there are a lot of kids that can run that would rather go 0 for 4 and strike out a couple of times during the game than, maybe going 1 for 4 and, maybe having a decent game. But they've taken away the bunting from a lot of kids today, and that's why you're seeing so many strikeouts in baseball today.
Yeah, there was a year there that forced the major leagues to lower the mound the following year because pitchers were dominating so much.
69, right?
69, was that the year of the pitcher?
68 was the year the pitcher. 69
Was
was
the year they lowered the mound?
yeah. I
They
think
lowered them out, right.
Now,
Yeah.
I
That's
know-
when you had Sandy up on the hill
yeah.
and Bob Gibson on the hill.
wow.
You know, those guys.
Hey! There's a name, Bob Gibson. Why don't you tell me about the first time you faced Bob Gibson?
Oh, Bob Gibson. I was a rookie playing an exhibition game in St. Petersburg, Florida. So right where my back foot would plant it, there's a hole. And McCarver was doing the catching, and I'm trying to cover the hole up so I could be comfortable. And Bobby's yelling at me, get in the batter's box, get in the batter's box. I'm trying to show him, there's a hole. Get in the batter's box. And then McCarver looked up at me and said, hey, Rook, get in the batter's box. So I finally was able to cover that hole up. And I got ready to hit. First ball, he threw up my neck. the second pitch at my head. And then he tried to go lower and he missed. All 4 pitches were aimed at me not getting in the batter's box, and he was ready to go. So on my way down to first base, he walked over close to the line. He says, and don't even try to steal.
Well,
I said, okay. And so years later, when I, in the Hall of Fame meetings that we had, I said, why did you try to hit me? I didn't do anything. He says, listen, I was double parked. I had a golf game ready, and you were just taking up my time.
yeah.
Gibson.
That was it.
Later on, years later, I was in Kentucky and I asked him the story, and he said, Rod Carew's a goddamn liar.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you say that? He said, because if I wanted to hit him, I would have hit him.
But he didn't know I was slick at the plate, too.
Yep.
Yeah, we had Jim Maloney on here, and you had talked about in your book that Cobb had stole home plate. Ty Cobb had stole home plate 54 times. You said it's a record that's never going to be broken. I agree. I mean, that's a crazy record. But Jim Maloney said that there was somebody had pitched back-to-back no-hitters, and he said
Johnny Vandermeer.
Johnny Vandermeer had pitched back-to-back. He said that's one record that'll never be broken because you have to pitch 3 back-to-back no-hitters. So who's going to do that? It can't be done.
They can't even pitch 3 back-to-back complete games.
Yeah.
No less 3
Especially
back-to-back.
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
did you ever see a game, a year when a guy's got a 6-inning no-hitter and they pull him, and then the next day a guy's got a 7-inning no-hitter and they pull him because of pitch count?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's
I don't know.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know how they can do it. Let the guy go until he's done.
Yep.
Back when I played, guys threw 150, 200 pitches, and they never complained. And now, if they throw 60 pitches in 4 or 5 innings, they're ready to pull them out.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's just crazy.
In 1977, you were the most valuable player. You hit 388. You threatened to hit 400. What was that year like for you?
Well, what's funny, I never went out there trying to hit 400. My job was to get hits every time that I, faced a pitcher. And all of a sudden, I'm caught up in this thing about, Ted Williams and hitting 400 and stuff. And it just went along all year. And I think it hurt me mentally because I couldn't get away from the press. I would have to go to Gene Mark and say, Skip, can we set a time where I can talk to these guys and then forget about the rest of the day? And so we did. And some guys would say, okay, some of the guys would just like, who does he think he is and all this stuff. And all I cared about was making sure that I could stay mentally sharp for the ball games. And so I finally had to not use my name at hotels, and I would use my daughter's name. But it was tough. I think anyone that has tried to come close to that, I know Tony did and George Brett did. I think it had to be mind-boggling, for them to be able to put up with it.
So you finished that year at 388. You said that the 4th of July celebration was maybe the greatest part of your career because you got 5 or 6 standing ovations. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were playing the White Sox out at the old net. And I think I went 4 for 6 that day and drove in some runs. And every time I stepped out of the dugout, people would stand up and give me a standing ovation. I think I received, 6 or 7 standing ovations that day. And I think it's because everyone there saw me come into the Twins' history as a young, immature kid. And here I was now as team leader. And they'd seen me growing up and mature a lot. So they appreciated me. And, to this day, I love the fans in Minnesota because they always respond to me in very positive ways. And it was my home for 12 years when I played with the Twins. And I still love going back and being part of the Twins organization.
Yeah, they're a great organization. Dave St. Peter's the president, and they take really good care of you.
And it's because of Dave St. Peter that I'm still there, because he is such a tremendous individual, person. Frank, I want to show you something real quick.
Okay.
Just give me a minute.
Oh, you got it?
Okay, here's a Roberto Clemente award.
That's terrific.
That is something really, really big.
Turn it toward the camera.
And this is the first thing that I show the kids, that this is so meaningful that they should all see it and realize the person who this award was done for. And then I have another one here that we talked about. This is the award that the league gave me for named after the hitting part, and Tony Gwynn also received one of these. And this is a statue of that they have in front of the Twin Cities Stadium.
Yep.
Yeah, it's about 8 feet tall.
So
when you go there, don't throw darts at it, okay? Just bow down. Just take your head off and give me a little bow.
There's a great picture that I've seen in the winter of the statue filled with snow, and somebody put a red and white scarf around Rod's neck to help him stay warm. Stay warm. In that 1988 season, you also had 15 home runs and 100 RBIs. Tell me a little bit about the 100th RBI and Sam Perlazzo.
Well, I went in. It was the last game of the season, and Gene Malk wanted me to get that 100 RBI, and so he pinched it. I think he pinched hit Perlazzo, and he got on base. And then before Sammy could run, and before he could walk up to home plate, Gene said, "Wherever you hit this next pitch that you're going to swing at, make sure that you end up at third, because I know he's going to drive you in." And that was it. Gene was playing for me like crazy, Gene Malk. And I still owe Sam a dinner about it, because I told him that I'd take him to dinner. And after all these years, we were in spring training with the Twins together, and I forgot all about it. But one day down the line, I am going to take Sam to dinner.
That's great. Your career has been marked by a lot of highs. We would be remiss if we didn't mention the passing of your daughter, Michelle. At that time, you were a very private person, and you came out of that cocoon, if you would, to try to save her life. And you were unable to save Michelle's life, but you saved thousands and thousands of other girls' or other people's lives because of that. And I just want to mention that because it's a great tribute to Michelle and to you.
Well, thanks, Frank. It was something that I felt I had to do. She asked me to do it because we were checking her into the hospital, and she was amazed at the kids running up and down the hallways with hockey sticks and kicking soccer balls, and they're holding their poles and stuff while they're doing this. And then she stood there and she watched them, and she says, "Dad," she says, "I want you to have all those kids that are sick." And I said, "Okay." She says, "I know that you're not good with the press. You don't like talking to the press, but please do me the honor of coming out and talking about this and helping other kids." So I did. It was her request. And I think at the time, the National Maradona Program was not, there weren't a lot of people in. And then I think we added close to 10 or 15,000 people.
I think
a lot more.
I think that's Why don't you?
I got the stats here that I'm reading was they started at 5,000, and when you started doing the promo, it swelled to 70,000 bone donors. So that's a hell of an accomplishment. And you yourself said in your book that despite all the awards and all the, of course, the accolades you've accumulated as a baseball player, the real mark of a man is what he does, his accomplishments off the field. And by God Almighty, the more I read about you, the more you should take a bow for that, because the golf tournament, the Heart at 29, I mean, it just goes on and on. But Frank can elaborate on that.
Well, last week we had John Vallely on, and John, I got to know John through your golf tournament, and John had lost a daughter, as had you, and your golf tournament has now raised nearly $22 million over the last 25 years as a testament to Michelle. She was a great kid. She was a great kid.
She was. She never met someone she didn't like. And I remember when we take motorhome trips, she was 3, 4, 5 years old. The first thing she would do is open the door, Daddy. She wanted to go out and go next door to the people in the other motorhomes and say hello and introduce herself. And I had to tell her, "Honey, you got to be careful about that, because there are a lot of people that would, try and take you away." She says, "Daddy, nobody's going to hurt me. I know that." And I says, "Okay." But then at dinner time, you'll see 15 kids trailing behind her when we were getting ready to eat. She invited the whole town of kids over to have dinner. Sometimes we didn't know if we had enough, but and then she would leave there and leave all her clothes with the kids. She'd wear a bathing suit home. Everything else that was in the motorhome, she would give away to the kids. That's just the kind of kid she was. And I promised her that I would always, as long as God gives me the health and strength on this earth, that I will continue to work with children's cancer. And that's what the golf tournament has become. It's become a staple, in my life. The last 25 years, that's all I've done. Just try to visit kids with cancer and hopefully get these kids that have dreams to realize their dreams, like trying to keep the doctors in the hospitals, trying to get them to try and find somehow or some way that we can get rid of some of these different blood diseases. So,
yeah. And for 25 years, you've been a stalwart of the Rod Carew Cancer Foundation PCRF tournament, except for 1 year you missed it. What caused you to miss it?
Well, I had a heart and kidney transplant, and so I couldn't make it. And what happened there is, I was doing some work with Dennis School, who's one of the head guys at the Angels organization, and I was his partner in promoting these different walks at the stadium for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And that night I was there dancing and playing around with my daughter and stuff. And the next morning, I decided to go out and play golf by myself.
Like I
My
said,
wife
with all your good friends.
Yeah, my good friends, me, and me. Because, I never like playing in front of people because sometimes if you don't hit the ball good, they say, oh, I thought you were supposed to be an athlete. Well, not me. Not when that little white ball is just sitting there. If it was moving, I wish I could have invented a moving tee.
Oh, use Jackie's bat.
Yeah. But, I went out and then I had this friend of mine 2 weeks previously was in Vegas, and he said that he was playing craps and all of a sudden he felt something in his chest, and he decided he'd never felt anything like that before, so he picked up his money, went up to a doctor in the hotel, and they told him that he had like a 90% blockage, and to make sure that he sees his cardiologist when he got home. And I remember that. And so as I'm putting my driver in the cart, in the back, my hands were balmy, and, I felt a little funny stuff, like a heartburn thing going down my chest. So I backed my cart up to the clubhouse, and I walked in, and I told the lady, I says, would you please call the paramedics for me? And I kind of laid down on the bench that was in there. And she called her husband, who was a paramedic, and she was talking to him, and he was asking her questions about what I look like and all these different things. So in about 5 minutes, the paramedics were there, and I flatlined. And then they brought me back. And then I flatlined again.
Whoa.
And they brought me back. But the thing that amazed me is that this one guy had this light going around his body. And I remember Michelle laying in bed with her doing crosswords, and she'd say, Daddy, she says, my guardian angel is right over in that corner. You can't see him, only I can see him. And he's sitting there like this, and he's got all these pretty lights around. And I said to myself, oh, yeah, I know you're on drugs. But, And I finally realized when I saw that, when that EMS guy was there, it brought back those memories. And so I said, yep, she's here. She's taking care of me. Well, they put me on the gurney, and on the way to the hospital, I flatlined again. And then they brought me back. And so when we got to the hospital, I think I flatlined again in the operating room, and they brought me back, and that was it. Just a crazy thing that I spent, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 days in the hospital there, and then they would let me go home. And they wanted me to see a cardiologist. I think I left on Friday, and they said Monday or Tuesday, go see a cardiologist. So then Wanda called, and they had a cancellation from someone on Monday, so they brought me in, and the doctor looked at me and says, I don't like what I see. He says, I want you to go to the emergency room. And from there, they shipped me to San Diego, to the hospital there, and spent a lot of time, and then I went to Cedars-Sinai's and went through the heart and kidney transplant, and it was crazy because I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. And then I talked to God, and He said He's going to save me to continue to do some of His work. And I had a machine inside my body that kept my one side pumping, and that was starting to wear out. And I was able to get the heart within, 6 days. And it's funny because this gentleman that I got my heart from, I met him when he was about 10 or 11 years old at my son's preschool, running around outside. And he came up to me and he says, "You're Ron Carew, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm going to grow up to be an athlete just like you." I said, "Do well in school, do your homework, study your books." And he says, "Oh, I'm a good student, but I want to grow up and be an athlete like you." So that's all he told everybody he saw that day. "Hey, did you meet Rod Carew?" "I met Rod Carew." His mother said that's all he talked about. And he was with the Jets at one point.
His name was Conrad Rulin.
And he also was waiting in a contract. It was with the Ravens, but waiting also on a contract. Hopefully, he was going to sign with the Patriots. And he had an aneurysm while he was working out at home. And he passed from the aneurysm. And he lived maybe about 8 to 10 miles away from us. And my wife sort of knew his parents. And so his parents heard about my condition when I was looking for a heart the day at the funeral. And then Rhonda and his mother, Mary, got together and talked about it. And, I was able to get his heart and one of his kidneys and saved my life. And I thank him to this day and thank his parents to this day for giving me the opportunity to complete God's work.
And that's how the Heart of 29 Foundation was started.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss, as you would, if we didn't give a tremendous amount of credit to your wife, Rhonda, because she was a pillar of strength through everything. She's
my hero.
She's your hero.
Yes.
She's your hero. Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Well, when you flatline 4 times, I'm not a medical guy by any stretch of the imagination, but that's basically saying you were dead 4 times. I mean, you flatlined 4 times. You were dead 4 times. And obviously, God does have plans for you. And He'll let you know when He's done with your plans, because His plans for you weren't on the field. That's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Yes, and He has a pledge for all of us. He knows when we're born the journeys that we're going to take through life, and to that point where He says, "Okay, it's time for you to come home." So He knows, and that's why I have so much faith in Him. I believe in Him for what He went through for us to even sin and forgive our sins and things like that. That's why I wake up in the mornings and I say, "Father, thank you for another beautiful day." I don't care what the day looks like. It could be snowing hard in Minnesota or sun baked in California, whatever it is. I'm just glad to be here and glad that He's kept me here to continue doing His work.
Wow. And wrapping this up, Derek, do you have any questions for Rod?
Yeah, I do. Hey, Rod, how you doing?
I do.
So, first question is,
who's your favorite current player?
Favorite current player. Mike Trout, I would have to say.
Okay, great.
Yeah. He does it all on the field. He runs, he hits, he fields, he hits the ball out of the ballpark. He's an aggressive player. And, I've watched him over the last, 10 years, and he does everything that you'd want a young player to do.
Great. And then another question to sort of spawn from that question is there a current player today that reminds you of yourself, if it's not Trout?
Well, there's a young man with the Twins that plays second base that I have worked with him the last couple of years, and he does everything the way you would like to see young hitters do and matured and continue to do those things. He's a very consistent kid, and he hits the ball all over from the left field foul line to the right field foul line. And he's the type of kid that I would want up in a situation where we need a run, and he would get on base, or he would drive in a run from second base, put the club ahead and tie a game up.
And what's his name?
Arise. That's his last name. I can't think of his first name. Luis Arise.
Luis Arise.
Yeah.
Good player.
Awesome. And then you mentioned. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You had a question.
I was gonna ask Frank what he thinks that I would hit today.
Well, I'm going to ask you that at the end. I'm going to ask you as I sign off. I'm going to ask you that at the end. Go ahead, Dick.
So you mentioned. Sorry, I just got to get this camera. You mentioned earlier that you had a black book for hitting, which I thought, first of all, the fact that you called it a black book, I think is cool. But do you think that all great hitters today have some semblance of a black book, or that they study great pitchers?
Well, they have video,
right? Okay.
Which is they get taped during the games, during at bats, and so they can go back during the course of the ball game and see what they're doing at the plate, or where a certain pitch was that they might have missed. I remember in 1967, Tony Oliva and I bought a little camera, and we used to film ourselves hitting. And then we go back to the hotel, take a sheet off the bed hanging on the wall, and that was our video of seeing ourselves hitting. Now today, these kids have, video rooms done by the dugout, that after an at-bat they can go up and see themselves. So they have a lot better. I don't think that too many of them have little black books or little books about facing different pitches. I think it's great. It's a great idea.
Well, you mentioned Tonio. I know it's going to be a big summer for you guys because Jim Cott's going to be inducted into Hall of Fame, and Tony Oliva is going to be in the Hall of Fame. How many batting titles did you roommates win together over the course of that 15-year period of time?
Well, I would say 10. I won 7, and Tony won 3.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Pretty good 1-2 punch.
Not too bad.
With Killebrew and Allison behind you. And yeah.
Versailles.
Yep. You want to?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the fact that I don't know, most of our viewers probably don't know unless they've read Rod Carew, One Tough Out, or If These Lips Could Talk, that you're a Marine. And I have a reverence for a Marine. I spent a year in Vietnam, and I was in the Air Force, but every time I see a Marine, I bow my head. And I just want to say, when you're a Marine, it's been my experience, you're a Marine for life. And you certainly fit that bill. You certainly fit that bill. You lived your life like a Marine, and thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. To get to meet you was an honor.
Thanks. Thank you, man.
I've got a
I learned a lot while I was in the Corps. And, you know, they say once a Marine, always a Marine. But it taught me a lot. And I was a combat engineer, and my work was to, we were to build bridges, set fuses, and blow the bridges up and stuff like that. So, and learn to disarm mines, find the mines and, you know, and disarm them. Mr. Griffith thought I was crazy doing that kind of stuff when I was still playing for his organization.
I got 2 questions in closing. What's your favorite song, Rod?
My favorite song, you wouldn't believe this, but it's the national anthem.
And why is that?
Well, you know, I was out in California and we're playing Boston. So Big Papi and Pedroia were talking about music and, you know, what's their song was. And then they called me over. I was right next to the cage where they were talking. And they asked me what my favorite song was. I said, hey, the national anthem. And they looked at me like I'm crazy and they were cracking up. I says, yeah, I says, because every time I hear that song, I know I'm going to get 2 or 3 or 4.
Yes, that is. And what do you think you'd hit it today if you were playing?
Well, I would say maybe about 285, you know, with these guys throwing a lot more fastballs. And, you know, plus I'm 76 years old.
285 would be about right, huh?
Yeah, 285 would be about right. Rod, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. We've had a great time talking to you, and you're always been a gentleman, and it's been my honor to be associated with you for 40 years.
Thanks, buddy. Really, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. And,
I'm glad. It was a real pleasure to meet you.
it.
Really an honor for me.
I actually have one more question. Rod, what is it like knowing Frank Pace for 40 years? 40 years.
You know, to be honest, he's been my brother, my cousin, everything that you can think of. You know, he's, I can call on him whatever time, whatever situation, and I know he's going to be there for me. And, you know, I love this guy. You know, we've had a great relationship, and we're going to continue that relationship until one of us leaves this earth.
Love you too, brother.
That's a hell of a
Be
tribute.
well.
Hell of a tribute to you both.
Yeah, love you, pal.
Okay, love you too.
Don't make him
Okay.
don't make him cry, Rod.
Thanks. Okay, I told you I'm sensitive. I told you I'm sensitive.
Now, if you would have asked me, do you know Frank Pace? I would have said only too well. Only too well.
All right, thanks again.
All right, that's just great.
Okay, guys.
Thank you so much, Rod.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So that's a pretty good interview.
Yeah,
He's a
he's
pretty good
amazing.
guy.
Amazing character. My God, what a man. And like you said, off the field, it's what defines, especially when you get older, you start realizing what's important in life, a legacy, you know, of sorts.
Yep.
Grandchildren, everything else that goes with it.
And now I'm sitting here in the place with you two clowns.
So highlighting your career. You go from Rodney Carew to Billy O'Connor and Derek Harris. Oh my God Almighty! Just get the. So Frank, what do you think about swallowing? Frank swallows the blue flame on national television on a podcast.
Well, it was.
We could have the first podcast of a suicide, Frank. No.
I treasure these days with you guys as much as I treasure anything else.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Put me in, Coach. I don't smoke.
Well, I treasure the time with Derek. I treasure the time with Derek anyway. All right, folks. Thanks.
All right.
joining
Thanks
in.
so much for looking in. If you do want a good read, I recommend Rod Carew's One Tough Out. Or If These Lips Could Talk. I'm a little biased, but it's got great 2 chapters on Rod Carew.
And if you look hard enough, you could probably find Rod Carew's Art and Science of Hitting by Armin Katayan and Frank Pace.
Oh my God.
Well, how about that?
So
read by all means.
read.
If you don't read, watch him make a mook on a mic.
For
It's
sure.
almost as good.
For sure. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for looking in, everybody.
Next week, Frank and Billy discuss inflation, first impressions, the good old days, Playboy magazine, and porn stats.
We'll see you next week.